Hi everybody. So in this video, I am going to take you step by step through my Halloween clown Harlequin makeup that I had been thinking about doing for quite some time now. And this is just my fresh face. I am 41 years old. I've been a makeup artist for 21 years. So let's get started. I don't get to do too much in the way of Halloween makeup these days. So this is always fun for me to get creative and show you guys sort of the other side of makeup artistry. I'm primarily a beauty artist and I do weddings and private clients and commercial work. And it's fun to just be able to be creative. So here I am starting with just a light layer of moisturizer. My skin's not too dry, not too oily. It's pretty normal, but just giving it some moisture before I start laying down colors. Here I am putting on a white cream base. This is from Mehron. It's super easy to blend. It doesn't get patchy. It's just really got a nice finish to it. So I'm laying that down with a brush and kind of tapping it in some places just to make sure that it is all blended evenly. You could use a beauty blender here, but I am more of a brush person. I just have more control. It's just what I'm used to, but there's not really a wrong answer. So to just finish out kind of buffing it in, I'm taking just this really big MAC brush that I've had forever and just sort of tapping in the last little bits of it before I go to powder. So I'm giving even a base on my eyes. While I was coming up with this makeup look, I sort of had an idea in my mind, but it's always, once you get in there and you start doing it, things can kind of change a little bit. You might have a different direction you're going to go. So I'm just giving myself an entirely white base, except for under my eyes, because I know I'm going to put color under there. This is Kryolan Derma Color Loose Powder. I'm pressing it into my hand just to make sure that some of that powder really gets down into the fibers of this little puff. These puffs I just get on Amazon in bulk. I go through a lot of them. I use them for my weddings. I like that they're pointed and they're just kind of a soft velour puff. But you want to kind of work that powder in deep into the fibers and then you're pressing it in. The reason why I'm not putting this on with a brush is because I don't want any streaking to happen with my color. I just really want a nice even base. As you see, there's no real streaking. Everything looks very even. And this powder is great over really any cream product here. So once I got that all down, I'm opening up this palette that I made that's got some cooler tone, Viseart colors, some NARS colors. This shadow is a NARS color. I'm putting it on with kind of a smaller powder brush, blush brush, onto my eyes because I want sort of just a wash of color over the eye area to build up some depth here. So I'm kind of working in some of these shadows first. And then as I go on throughout this video, I will build up more of the details and kind of like when if you're painted, oh my God, I can't talk today. If you've ever painted, you would, paint your canvas white first, and then you would block out major areas of color. So if you have a sky and a landscape, you're blocking out the blue of the sky, you're blocking out the greens and the browns of the landscape, and kind of giving that shape first before going in with smaller brushes for more detail. So it's the same idea here. I'm blocking out some shadowy areas and getting in there with a little bit of a smaller brush, same color. This sort of, it's more of a warm tone here, but building out some shape around the eye. I want this to be a pretty but also kind of a scary clown look. So I want some depth around the eyes to kind of mimic like a hollowness. And there's not really any wrong way to kind of go about this. You're just using colors that are a little darker than your skin tone. And like I said, I'm just winging it through here. I'm also going to use that same tone through my lips to build out some texture and some definition on my lip area. I'm just using a blush or a eyeshadow brush here to create some depth. And I want this to be sort of like how the Joker is with the, where it looks like cuts up the side of the face. And so I'm pulling that up. And I do apologize for being out of frame for most of this video. It's really hard for me to see what I'm doing. And sometimes I'm in frame and I don't notice that I've gone back out of frame, so I do apologize. I try to make sure you guys can see what I'm doing. So see here, I'm like, oh no, I'm not in frame. And so I try to get back in frame to show you guys what I'm doing. But it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just buffing this color in, giving some shape around my lip as if you were to have a shadow in that area. You could use gray here, you could use purple, you could use blue, you could use pretty much any color. It's just when you're doing lights and darks and shadows and highlights, you can kind of do any color, but you just have to make sure that those tones sort of work together. So darker colors will be shady and lighter colors will be more of a highlight. So since the white is the first thing I laid down, that has to remain my negative space area. So negative space is all color that's going to just stay. I'm not going to cover it. So if I want any highlights with that white, I have to leave the white space open. And so I'm only going to be building in dark colors. Going back to this little palette, I have this kind of mauve-y tone here that's like kind of a skin tone mauve, where because my base is white, I'm going in with this to carve out some shadowy areas for definition, as if this is like definition on my skull. So more of a cooler tone to insinuate just shadows and depth, but on a much softer level. This is a little bit larger brush to lay down some of that color, but just really softly. So I don't really want this to have any hard edges. Giving myself a super cut cheekbone there. And on the other side, same thing. Like I said, you could do a brown. I mean, you probably wouldn't want to do too warm of a brown for something like this, but you could do a cooler tone grayish brown. You could do any kind of bluish gray for something that's mimicking shadow on that white base there. I could have done the same color around the eye and around the lip area, but I'm going to be working in a lot of really cooler tones into those first two areas with the eye and the lip. So I wanted a little bit of a warmer tone just to have a little contrast in the color tones that I'm using. Going back in and buffing out some of those edges with that brush that I used to blend out the white. When I'm doing makeup looks like this, I'm working, well, really any kind of makeup. I'm very, I guess, I'm a stickler when it comes to blending out edges and not seeing a lot of, I don't really want to see where the makeup like starts and ends. I want it to just blend real seamlessly and look like it was just meant to be that way. So going back in with a little bit more of that mauve color. And if I'm rambling, you guys, this video is an hour long. I'm going to attempt to talk for most of it. But I also kind of came down with a cold today. I filmed this yesterday, and today I'm not feeling well. So I'm trying not to cough into this microphone while I film this voiceover. But I am a little bit out of it, so if you find me rambling, that is why. Okay, so I'm pretty happy here with how the look of the shape of, you can see everything's kind of carved out. Um, and like I said, this is just, I'm kind of going through this. I'm winging it. I'm not really sure, Jesus has taken the wheel here. I'm not really sure where this look is taking me. I have kind of a vague idea in my mind of what I want it to look like, but executing it is a different thing. There's a lot of stuff I edited out of this video, probably 20 minutes worth or so of me just staring at my kit and kind of contemplating life and thinking about which colors I want to do, thinking about where I want to place it, thinking about how much I want in one area, or if I want to take away from certain parts of my face, or if I want to add to it. Like, there's a lot of thought that goes into a look like this, because it's not really easy to start this, get halfway through, and be like, oh, I messed up, I got to remove some of this. You're kind of just committing to the bit here. So you're committing to, like, now I'm darkening up around the eye area. So I'm committing to kind of a darker eye area here. So we're building that up. And you can really see how this really starts to take shape. That actually is kind of pretty. It would be like a really pretty smoky eye look for, I don't know, for a date night. Add some lashes to that, some mascara. You got a nice little look going. This is such a pretty palette. I just bought it from Blend Bunny. It has a million different colors in it. Here's me with a double chin trying to show off this palette. So I have lots of colors to choose from. I am still sort of, I know I'm going to be here in the cool tones. I ended up choosing purple. And I think this purple works well with like my skin tone, with my hair color, my eye color, and also the fact that my base is white. It just has a really pretty contrast against everything else here. And it blends well into those warm tones. So you see what I mean about using the warm tones first to carve all of that out. The purple really blends well into it, and the edges just kind of disappear into nothing. And it ties in with that mauve tone that I used as my shadow and my contour. So I'm just using kind of a, oh God, I probably have had this brush for 20 years now. It's just a blending brush. I think it's the MAC 217. I have a few that look like it from other brands, but it's firm enough to put color down. It's not so flimsy that you're just kind of flinging color everywhere, but it puts it down nicely, but also blends the edges out. So this is a real workhorse of a brush here. Is it maybe it's a different brush. It might be the Morphe one that's similar to it. I have a bunch of these. So we're going underneath too. Like I said, this is going to be more of a Harlequin kind of clown, scary, pretty clown look. So we're going to do those kind of the streaks up and down the eye. And I really want the eye to look very sort of dark and menacing. But with that said, you still have to build these colors up in layers. So building as I go, darker, more intense colors layered up, and then kind of softer colors on top of that. There's a few different purples in this palette that I'm using. So I'm building up kind of that clown eye makeup sort of look here. And we have to do the same thing through the top. So I just go right up through the eyebrow, building up that background color as we go. Using a little bit of a smaller brush, I'm pulling some of that color up. This brush has, it's smaller, so it's going to be more detailed. It's going to pick up more color, and I can kind of work in some more of that detail. This is also a good brush for doing a smoky eye if you are blending out pencil on the eye or anything where you need kind of a smaller detail brush. A pencil brush is really good for that. Just having some small detail brushes are really good to have on hand for really any kind of makeup look. I use those types of brushes all the time for bridal, if you're blending out eyeliner, if you're doing liner or a shadow underneath the eye. Just it's a some kind of small brush to give you some control. It's really nice to have. So I'm working in some of that lighter purple. This purple, you can kind of see it's got a lot more, it's lighter and it's got some more blue in it. So it almost contrasts a little bit against that kind of warmer, darker purple. And I think it's really pretty against the white. While I'm working, I'll see an area and I'll say, I got to blend that out a little better. I end up blending that, that streaky bit out a little bit because it was looking a little streaky to me. Blend out some of the forehead. As you go when you're doing a makeup look, you'll start to notice some of the other areas needing attention, whether they look kind of unfinished or if they look like there's too much going on. Like as you work and the look starts to come together, you kind of start to see it all as one unit and not just parts of the whole. So once you see it, once it starts to come together and it's one cohesive look, that's when you'll really notice if any of the other areas are standing out too much or if they are they need a little more attention. And honestly, there's parts of this look that I probably overdid, but I was just winging it. So, I haven't practiced this look before. I just sat down and was like, let's do it. So if I were to redo this look, there's probably some things that I would change a little bit, but I wanted this to look kind of messy. I wanted it to look hastily done, with some kind of smearing and some kind of more dirtier looking details while still maintaining kind of this scary but pretty look to it. So working in black shadow with another small detail brush here, pulling that streaking paint, kind of like if you've ever seen The Crow, this is sort of the vibe I'm going for here. So pulling that down the cheek with black on the small detail brush here. And I will eventually go over this with a black cream liner as well as some jewels that I bought at Michael's that I got really excited to use. Anytime I can glue something on a face, it's a good day. So building up shadow on the top. What's really funny about this is when I used to work at Mac, we had this running joke that if you did a purple smoky eye, you were bound to get any job that you interviewed for. So everybody, whenever anybody I worked with was going for a promotion or a different job at a different counter or a different location, the makeup look was always a purple smoky eye because it was always so pretty. And this is channeling my baby makeup artist from 20 years ago with my purple smoky clown eye here. And I can attest, it is very pretty. These colors look really good, especially if you have blue eyes. It'll make ours look kind of greenish gray. So here I am working in the kind of paint streakiness up the top. I want it to look like it was kind of hastily applied on. Not too perfect. I'm liking that. And then you'll see I get in with a different brush and kind of blend out the edges. This just has the purple on it, softening out around those streaky paint look. So using that fine brush again to draw up through the brow, checking in the mirror to make sure we're even. I feel like I'm painting little Bob Ross trees right now on my eyeball. More of that purple. If you find that you have some areas that look a little streaky or you need help with blending that area, you can just pick up one of the other brushes and get in there with a little bit of the lighter color, and you can sort of blend out any of the darker stuff that looks like it's not moving too much. You can blend it out with a lighter color. Some of the issues that I find with some of these really pigmented shadows is that they just have a high concentration of the pigment in them, and so when you put them on, they have a hard time blending super well. They just sort of want to stick right where you put it, and they don't want to move. So you just have to make sure that you're using small amounts on your brush, you're not putting too much down at any time, and that you are kind of blending out the edges with a different brush, either one that has very little color on it or that has one of the lighter colors in your look. So right now this brush doesn't have really much on it. Actually, I think I put some of the white, there's a white eyeshadow in that palette, and I wanted to blend out some of these edges with the white powder to soften, even just to soften down some of those purple edges. So yeah, I'm working in the white, making faces at myself because some of the dark shadow, if you ever do makeup on yourself, you'll know this one where you are, you know, blending out your powder or something, and then suddenly you hit like a little patch of a bunch of different little pieces of fallout from your dark shadow, and then suddenly you're streaking dark shadow across your face. So that happened there. But I was able to blend it in. So using a pencil brush with just a little bit of purple on it. And now I'm going in with kind of the salmony colored orange, because purple and orange really look pretty together. Plus that's kind of your standard Halloween color combo for whatever reason. Black and purple and orange seem to be very popular this time of year. But I think it's a better color combo than ugly red and green at Christmas time. So warm tones like this look really good against purple, especially when you have contrast with the white and black. So I'm giving the eyes a little more definition with some of this orangey tone here. And like I said, I'm just sort of making it up as I go along. I just felt like I needed some more contrast in color, a little bit more interesting tones here with this to give it just a little more texture. So I'm liking how that's looking. I work a little bit into the mouth area, on the edges here, and nose hair that needs to come out, and then it hurt my made my eyes water. But you know how it is. Sometimes you just see a nose hair and you're like, what? I gotta get rid of you. Working in a little bit of white. The white's really just to blend edges out. Softening some of these areas. The one thing that's kind of funny about doing makeup like this is when you're doing it on yourself in the mirror, you really see a lot of these details that don't really translate to the screen. So even though this is, you know, really powerful camera, it's really high def, some of these little things that I can see on the mirror don't really reflect into the actual video on the screen. So kind of figuring out what to do with the nose area here. I start with that orange. And then I ended up working some of the purple into it. Just kind of figuring it out as I go along. I just wanted a little bit of color on the end. I end up going in later with a little bit of black because I end up adding so much black that that kind of looked unfinished. Here I'm adding, this palette just really has everything that I need. One of these cooler tone pinks. I'm going to add it as a blush. This part I didn't really want to overdo. I just wanted a tiny, like, little essence of a blush here. I didn't really want it to look too strong. But if I was doing a look where everything was really, really clean looking and there wasn't like this kind of messy look to it, I would probably do maybe a little bit more of a brighter blush, or if I wasn't working in so many other colors, like if it was just black and white, having a pop of really pink blush would look really pretty. So that's about it for the blush. I'm pretty happy with that. So this is me moving on. These are shimmer tones through the middle of this palette. They're like a duochrome. There's a greenish blue, there's a pinkish bronze. I'm using kind of this purpley blue here. I want to put this purpley blue kind of all around the eye area. It looks really pretty against the blacks and the purples. And you'll see it really come together as I go on. So I'm going to add some of these jewels here in a little bit, but I wanted this to all have kind of a wet, glossy, shimmery texture to it. So that's what I'm doing here with this duochrome shadow. Really working it in through the crease, up around the edges, down underneath. The stuff is like, I mean, you can see it's pigmented and I feel like I'm barely picking any of it up. So I'm really happy with this palette and all the different tones that are in it. It's really fun. And you know, the world's your oyster with a look like this. You can kind of do whatever you want. So I end up going over all of the black. I end up putting liner over this anyway here in a bit, but it's got such a cool look to it when you put duochrome colors like that over black, and you get this really cool kind of holographic look, and it changes. You know, this color kind of changes depending on what's under it. So it'll be kind of different looking over the white versus the black versus the purple. It's just a really cool look to it. And I'm going to add some jewels here in a little bit that are also kind of a holographic. So that ties in with that shimmery shadow. So here I am inspecting it up close. Just blending out some of these edges. Okay, so here we are. We're going to get involved in some lining. The liner is probably, this is where you're like, all right, I'm really committed now. So I'm taking an art brush. The liner is the Danessa Myricks Color Fix Mattes in black. It's probably the darkest black cream liner that I own. And I'm using this with a brush because it's real kind of creamy like a paint. It wouldn't really work here to use one of those like felt tip liner brushes just because they are probably not dark enough and they're more kind of more liquidy, whereas this is more of a cream. You can actually pack it down on the skin. And I'm sorry that I'm completely out of frame here, but I had to get up kind of close into the mirror. So here I actually pick the mirror up and I start doing this in the mirror. It's just hard to hold the mirror with one hand and paint on my face with the other hand. But next time I do a video, I'm going to really work on the framing. Still getting used to it here, you guys. So you got to bear with me. So I'm painting over the black area from the shadow. And even though this paint gives it some detail, I still don't want it to look like too perfect. Same with the top. And I don't want to just leave that liner as like just a cat eye. I want to really cover a lot of my lid with this black paint. This liner also really dries down super like waterproof. When I was taking this off last night, I had to bust out the Pond's cold cream to get it off. So this is just me giving myself a little bit more of a wing. And the funniest part is like as I'm doing this, I kind of fucked it up. So I'm cleaning it up here. I just edited all that out. I love doing liner. I end up getting a lot of brides and stuff too that really want more of a thick liner. And I swear I like hold my breath while I'm doing it because it's such a it's tricky. Sometimes it's tricky to do a good liner. And depending on people's eye shape, you know, you can put a liner on and then you open your eyes and you can't see it. So I'm making this look almost like it's a little smudgy, like I've been crying with this paint on my face. Making sure I'm in frame. My camera it's a really nice Sony FX30 camera, and I have the little tiny screen that I can flip around so I can see what I'm doing. And my camera's a little bit further away, but it's zoomed in, so it's hard for me to kind of see the framing. But after shooting this video, I kind of know what I will need to do for the next one when I film another video myself. Here I am kind of cleaning up an edge here. These are the pointed Q-tips that are for detailing. You can take another brush that's got, this one I think had some white cream paint on it, like a very tiny amount. And here we go with the other side. And I do get in there with a pencil and line my waterline here in a little bit because you really want that to be all filled into if you're doing a look like this. You don't really want to leave any of that skin showing. I just wasn't sure how these paints do in the waterline, so I filled it in with a eye pencil. So same thing here. I don't want this to look too perfect. I want it to look kind of streaky. And then I'm building out my cat eye. This is where I'm always like holding my breath. And the cat eye on this side. This brush, actually, I've had it for a long time, and the tip almost has like a couple of the bristles are like slightly curved around. And so instead of getting this really fine line here, I get like a little bit of this, of like a double line. And honestly, it's really not super noticeable, but I notice it while I'm working in the mirror. And of course, me being me, I've got to clean it up. I've got to fix it. So I'm pretty happy with that. But this is when I need to just step away instead of keep adding to it. I need to just look at it and say, okay, we're good. So here I am cleaning up that little edge. And this is always a hard thing to do because, you know, you're working with so many different layers of colors underneath and you don't want to mess up all these different layers. So here's me being frustrated because I just made it worse. Bringing out the big guns here with the larger Q-tip. Fixing that line. The funniest part of this whole thing was the line was fine, and then I just went in and started messing with it again, and I didn't really need to do that. Here's me questioning all my life decisions, and I'm getting in there with a brush, cleaning up the edges. And I think I'm getting a little bit more. Oh, I'm licking a Q-tip now. Don't recommend doing this on clients, but on yourself, you can do a spit shine all day. So see how, like, when you clean up an area that it sort of messes up what's underneath. So you want to make sure that you're able to get back in there and add back in, you know, some of that white. So here I am, like, hoping I don't mess this up. Okay, that's much better. Much better. Okay, leave it alone, Mandy. There you go. They match. Oh, I color in my little beauty mark. I ended up putting a jewel on it after this, which was kind of fun. So here I am just coloring in kind of the top lid, making that paint look nice and streaky. Filling it around the whole eyelid. People tend to do those little, like, cat eye where they, like, make it sharp on the inside. I don't really like how that looks because that's not how eyes don't do that. They aren't sharp on the inside. This Denessa paint is amazing, and I wish they weren't always out of stock in all the other colors because there's so many good colors in it. But it's good to have just like a black and a brown. So I went to go kind of color in some or fix some stuff up here, and that had a little bit of dark on it. So here I am about to fix all of these areas, getting in there with the white paint again. And I am working over a layer of powder, so instead of going streaky kind of with it, I'm trying to just pat. So I'm patting and trying to blend that edge out. I ended up powdering it too, but I edited that out. I'm working in a little bit of that mauve-y tone shading color and blending the edges out of that. Sometimes you find yourself in a situation when you're doing makeup and you're just like, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. I hope this comes out. I hope this comes out. And it's just trial and error. But I really want you guys to see just how much goes into getting these details right. And I'm pretty happy with that. Powdering it a little bit here with that loose powder. That takes down some of the shine. Also helps everything kind of blend with itself. Like, I don't really want a really dark tone of shadow around the perimeter of my face, so just kind of that sort of lighter mauve color just for some definition, but I don't really want that to look dark by any means. Here I am with the liner, doing my mouth cuts. Looking back on this, I really do sort of like the look of the mouth just being this like natural tone. I think it gives it kind of an undone feel. But my goal with this was for everything to look very dark and moody. And so I end up painting the lips, but I think it looks cool even without it. After I do this liner, I'm going to get in there with some shadow. I'm going to work in some of the purples and the blacks again. So here we are getting into some of these purple tones. And by the time I was putting this on, that liner was just not moving. Because originally I was like, oh, I'm just going to kind of fade that liner into this purple, and that liner was not budging. So I lay the purple down, and then I end up getting in there with some of the black. The black kind of helps buff out those edges, but it also ended up making it look a little darker than I wanted. And like I said, sorry about being completely out of frame for this. I'm just blending that black kind of into the edge of the black liner and trying to smudge it into the purple. I got a little more purple on this brush here. I don't have any proper lipstick on. This is just all shadow. Still working on some purple into the lip. So see how dark that has made that. This, you could just leave it like this. It looks cool. But I, being me, has to get in there and add a bunch of extra shit to it. So I'm adding in kind of some shadow. I want to make that mouth area look kind of messy, look kind of like bigger and scarier. There's sort of a fine line between really pretty clown and kind of really scary clown. And I really wanted to sort of toe that line and make things look a little unsettling. But you can easily adjust this type of makeup to be more of a pretty clown. You can just do a lip. You don't have to do like these cuts up the face. Even just a plain lip. Not a plain lip, but like a lip that doesn't have a bunch of extra, you know, stuff on it would also be really pretty. So I'm making this look like, trying to make it look almost like scarring. And just more depth to it, more definition, kind of jaggedy edge here. And I'm working in some purple to tie in a little bit of those tones that's in the rest of the face. Kind of using that as like a shadowy shadow color. And here's where I start on my brows. I dip it into that Danessa Myricks Color Fix liquid cream liner. And I get in there and I start drawing out individual brow hairs. For sake of this look being kind of a pretty look, I wanted to incorporate kind of some beauty makeup techniques in with it. And sort of drawn on brow hairs is one of those things. Otherwise, you could just color the brows in totally dark. You could block the brows out using a glue stick. There are a lot of videos on that. So you could block their brows out using a glue stick. You could color the brows in totally white. I wanted to keep my natural kind of brow shape here and just draw it in. I drew this side in a little thicker, but I end up getting in there with a Q-tip and I fix some of it. Like I said, it's kind of once you're in there and you're drawing, you're kind of committed. You're like, all right, this is what we're doing, and you better hope to God you can clean things up with a Q-tip if you do a little too much. So I cleaned that top edge up, and then I got in there and I cleaned up the bottom edge just slightly because it was just looking a little bit thick for my liking. And anytime you're cleaning something up with a Q-tip, it's good to get back in there with the color that's under it just to fill it in a bit. So this is really looking pretty good. Probably a cat hair in my mouth. But like I said, we're winging it. Oh, here's where I fill in my eyeliner, and I'm doing that completely out of frame because I had to get up close into the mirror. But you can see how much better that looks. This is a Makeup Forever pencil. One of the artist pencils in black. Doing the top waterline as well as the bottom waterline. Surprising that my eyes didn't water while I was doing that. And then I end up filling my nose in a little bit with some black just to give it a little bit of just more definition, since everything else on the face is so so much contrast that I wanted that to have a little more contrast. But the nose, there's so many things you can do with the nose. You can draw a little heart. You could just draw like a round ball. You could put a ball on it, you know. There's a lot of different types of clown noses you can do. Here I am adding more detail than needed into the cuts on the face. But it kind of gives the illusion of it having been kind of stitched together and, you know, an aged scar here. Sorry that I'm out of frame on some of that, but you can kind of see what I did. Adding in little tiny bits of detail. I think I'm just using the black. Adding some color around it because I don't want it to just look like a fully black nose. I want it to look like a color gradient. Okay, my next step is mascara, and then I'm going to do the jewels. This is just a Benefit mascara. Funny story about this mascara. I was on a flight to go see my mom in Seattle, and my boyfriend was on the flight with me, and he had talked to this girl earlier while we were at the gate who had a really cute dog. And when we got on the plane, she ended up getting on the plane like right next to us. And my boyfriend, who never flies, sat next to her and the dog and got to pet the dog the whole time. But anyway, her dad is one of the vice presidents at Benefit. And she had a mascara and she gave it to me. So that's the mascara. I actually really like it. So I will probably buy it again. So the marketing worked well. Here I am adding in more liner detail into the mouth area. And this is a fun part where I start to glue on these jewels. I bought this little pack of jewels at Michael's, and they come in a bunch of different shapes. This is a teardrop shape that I'm using. So teardrop shape at the bottom of the little black paint streak. And I'm going to do that at the top as well. I think my voice is starting to get mad at me for talking for an hour whilst kind of sick. So I'm just using a lash glue to glue these jewels on. You can get like a little tool that's meant for picking up these little jewels. I'm just using a tweezer, and it was a little bit frustrating. I had to edit out some of the areas where I was dropping jewels. But yeah, if you have a fine tip tweezer or one of those little things that are like sticky and they're meant to like pick up a jewel, it's kind of like a sticky little pointy end. Here I'm adding kind of a larger jewel to the top, which I kind of like the look of that. I was having an issue with picking up that other jewel. So you can see it's taking me a while to put it on there. Make sure everything is staying. Here we go with the other one. And I drop it. Trying to get it perfectly on. The tweezer wasn't working, so here I am putting it on just with my finger. It was a larger jewel, so I was able to actually pick that one up a little easier. I have these really cool ones in this set that are like a elongated kind of emerald cut. And I put that, I was like, oh, do I want to do it on the lid? No, I want to do it right there. So kind of figuring out where I'm placing it, because I really want it to look like teardrops on the bottom. So having kind of one elongated emerald cut style and then into like a diamond shape and then into a teardrop kind of gave it this really cool like Harlequin sort of effect. And that's it for the jewels. So you just put them on with a little clear lash glue. Oh yeah, the last thing I do with the jewels is I glue one to my beauty mark. So that's what I do here. I got another kit of kind of these like gunmetal color jewels, so I put one on my beauty mark because I thought it would look cool. I kind of had a hard time sticking though because my beauty mark is raised, my mole. They called it a beauty mark when I was a kid. So it was making sure it was sticking properly. So yeah, that's on there. So that looks cute. So lots of jewels going on. And then after this, I move on to doing some lashes on myself. I have these cluster lashes that I got, I think, off Amazon. They're pretty long, and I don't really use them on myself because they're just aggressively long. But for a look like this, I thought it was appropriate. So I do 3 on each side, kind of a shorter one in the middle, and then longer toward the middle or shorter one on the inside, and then longer towards the middle and the outside. But yeah, there's so many different lash types out there. These are just ones that I had that were a little bit longer. I feel like a look like this really looks finished if you have lashes on. This is me just adjusting everything. This is a lash tweezer. They're sort of blunt and kind of an L shape sort of, so you can grab from the side. I don't remember where I got these. I've had them forever, but they make putting lashes on pretty easily. But they have a lot of different lash applicator tools that you can buy now that make putting clusters on yourself really easy. I prefer a cluster over a strip lash. The funniest part about this whole video is I actually have a lot of allergies to things in cosmetics, even though I work in cosmetics, which may be why I have allergies to things. But a lot of pigments I have allergies to, reds and blues primarily, and anything that's like in my waterline, some lash glue, some mascaras, I kind of react to. So after I did this whole look, I only wore it for maybe an hour, got a little mileage out of it, and then I scrubbed it all off because I was starting to feel my eyes getting itchy, slightly swollen. Another thing with lashes like this, I didn't do it here. I could have, but I just didn't want to touch my face, is gluing the lashes kind of from underneath. So if I glue from underneath, I sort of pull up on my lid and to kind of pop the lashes up away from the eye, and then I glue underneath. But I didn't want to touch my face, so I just glued my lashes from the top, which is how, historically is how people do it. So this is me just sort of posing with this look, finished look almost. Of course, me being me, I see that I want to add maybe a little bit more shimmer to the face. So I end up grabbing that same Blend Bunny palette and I use another one of the duochromes on the cheek. So really pretty look. So yeah, I was like, I thought I was done. I'm not done. So that's it. I just put a little bit of color on the cheek. It's just like a kind of a goldish, pinkish tone there. And that's really it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I can't wait to see you on the next one. I hope you guys recreate this video. I would love to see it if you do. Send me pictures. Follow me on Instagram at makeup_by_Mandy, and I will see you next time. Thank you. Bye.